Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 22. We are talking.
Katja's phone's gone flat, so I'm the one who has to be organised.
Gillian, what are we talking about this week?
This week we're talking about the love-hate relationship that we have with earning off-farm income, and we will be continuing our discussions about managing burnout and how to handle self-care when everything else goes to shit.
Hi, welcome to Agsolutely Fabulous. My name is Gillian Fennell, also known as Station Mum 101. I love everything about agriculture, especially the people and especially communicating about what makes Australian ag so special.
And I'm Katja Williams, a beef, cattle and cropping farmer, and I love all things ag, and I'm also known as the ultimate farm wife. Together, we are Agsolutely Fabulous, and we are talking all things agriculture beyond the headlines.
And we can't wait to give our opinion to you, and we hope you enjoy it.
So let's get into today's episode. Absolutely. So let's get stuck into it. So the talking about off-farm income conversation came up when I was talking to some girlfriends, and I thought we need to deep dive on this on the podcast. Now, some people are very pro off-farm income, and there's lots of reasons why. We've talked about many of them here on the podcast before, particularly when we're talking about succession, wanting to be independent on the farm, and needing some dollars for yourself to have self-care or to get those luxury items that, like soaps and things that the farm won't pay for. But on the other hand, why are government incentives that are based for agriculture pushing off-farm income?
Yeah, it's because it's sort of very divisive as well, because like living where I live, I have had the opportunity to earn off-farm income on occasion. But that's the exception, not the norm. Like if you're really isolated, your opportunities to earn off-farm income are really limited. And so it's further restricting and further penalising those who live far away from a regional centre. And, these days we've got work from home and all that sort of stuff, but it's still, yeah, it's not great.
I guess where I wanted to take this conversation today is if you are running a sustainable farm business and practice, how come when you go to seek financial advice or when you go to do some of these great courses that are around at the moment and they want to talk business plans and they want to talk cash flows, great if you're a new farmer, great if you're just taking on the books, great if you haven't done that before. But if you've got a sustainable business where you have been running it for a very long time, why are they now trying to convince you to be the exception of the rule? Why are they trying to to convince you that you need to diversify your business by having an off-farm income stream? Why is that the diversity that they're trying to push at the moment? Because if your business is diverse within its agricultural sectors, for example, we are running starting commercial shorthorns, trade steers, cropping, haymaking. Why is that enough? Why is that not enough within itself and with its diversity? Why are they then saying, oh no, to reduce your risk, someone needs to have a stable off-farm income or off-farm income to be able to subsidize that? Look, great. When you come into a drought, you've got off-farm income. But if your farm is sustainable, if it's doing really well, if there's, say, just two of you in your business, you don't have time to be stepping away from your farming practice to be able to doing off-farm income. Why are they encouraging that instead of doubling down on your farm business and working in it and on it?
That's an interesting point, because if you're doing farming right, and this is where you've got multi-generations on one farm, obviously it's a bit different, and whether you can have employees or whatever. But if you're farming, running the farm, then you've already got at least one full-time job. Like And if you're farming and you're raising a family and you're running the household, like you've got like 3 full-time jobs. So, and it's nearly always the fact that they encourage the woman to go and get an off-farm job or earn off-farm income or something. Like, why is it that just doing your job is no longer enough? Why do we need to justify our existence by doing something else? If you want to do something else, that's great. Don't stop, do what you want to do. But why, when we go to seek advice from financial service providers, from farm business courses, they're like, oh, well, you should the number of people who have said to me, oh, you should have farm stays and four-wheel drive adventure tours. Just no, I've got enough to do. Like, and I know how droughts work. Like, I know that there will be times when we're not selling the same volume of cattle and all those sorts of things. That still doesn't give me the justification to go and start a whole nother business that may or may not work. Like, that's just money down the drain. Why aren't we encouraged to focus on what we're good at and do what we do really well, instead of like, doing little bits and pieces here, there and everywhere? It's a really strange thing I've found. And, we don't, and I know some people do this because they're in dire financial straits, but we don't say to doctors, like, you know what you really need? You need off-farming, you need off medical practice income. Like, and you're all encouraged to invest and buy investment housing and play on the stock market and get a managed bloody term deposit, something. And that's all part of the mix, but it's not telling someone to go and get another whole nother job. It's crazy.
Do you think it's because they really truly don't understand what it is we do on a daily basis? Like, they can't possibly imagine how busy we are?
I think that's part of it. I think a lot of people who give advice like that have absolutely zero concept as to what our days look like. And even if they do, but they can't, get a nanny or a govey or put the kids in daycare, or they're not suitable choices for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. You cannot just, it's just so frustrating that. And when you say to them, like, that isn't an option, they go, oh, are you sure? Yeah, I'm damn sure, because, it's my business. And, like, I do know what we're capable of. And I'm pretty sure I'm not capable of having another job to add to the ones I've already got.
I think if you're looking for off-farm income, both Gillian and I have off-farm income, but we do it as a secondary. We do it as something that's a little bit for us and because we want to. It's
and not from
a
this
necessity.
podcast, I can tell you.
It's not this podcast, no. So, but if you want to jump on that and help us get an off-farm income through the podcast, we'd love more sponsors. At the moment, we are just covering costs and doing it because we're passionate and because we really believe that the divide needs to be closed because of topics like this and other ones we have covered on the podcast, and also because we really feel like rural Australia and farming Australia needs more voices to be broadcast and put out there under these new policy changes and these new structures. Like, the conversation where this came up was because it was advice being given to farming families. Well, it's not, I don't think it's the right advice for everybody. And I don't think it's the right advice for people who are wanting to put more time, more effort into a sustainable farming practice.
Yeah, and then you have to wonder, like, who are these people, like, who are these consultants that are giving this advice? Because, like, how qualified and how experienced are they if that's the sort of advice that they're handing out to people? It just demonstrates a lack of understanding of the framework and the environment in which we operate, which is quite frightening, because then they're giving people professional advice on how to manage their business, and they can't even comprehend that we can't just go and get a second job. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. I think also sometimes when they think you and I have very different farming practices, like you sort of have an on-farm like an on-season and off-season when it comes to mustering and things like that, whereas we're quite intensive all the time. There's no downtime for us, particularly between the cattle and the cropping. Everything sort of just rolls into the next, where correct me if I'm wrong, Gillian, but you guys have like a mustering season, and you have a season to do different bits and pieces due to the climate and the market from where you are. So I think sometimes when they're handing out this advice as well, they're going, oh, well, you're not going to be doing much during the wet season. Get an online presence, get an off-farm job. And it's like, well, actually, that's when we do all the shed jobs. That's when we do all the maintenance. That's when we do all the strategic planning. That's when we sit down and work out, right, what are our forecasts for the next, 10, 20 years? Where do we want to be? How are we going to get there? What are we going to do if, things get really rough, like you're still in drought? So how are we going? What are we going to do for the next one? What are we going to do differently? That's when we do all that planning, rather than actually being out on the farm doing the work.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing, because when we're not mustering, there's still bores to be checked, there's still lick runs to be done, there's fencing to be you cannot be involved in any sort of agriculture or horticulture or anything, and like you just, and I know I make fun of people who are purely cropping, that they go fishing and everything, but even that is a small amount of time, and it's a holiday like anybody else would have, to go and have a break, and that's completely fine, and you should do that. But there's still work. Like it's 365, 99% of the time. It's just to like say, oh, well, just go and get another job or get some off-farm income going. And that also sort of, okay, if I was to like set up a sort of a farm stay or something like that, that requires a cash investment that I don't have access to that cash. So you want me to go into debt to start an enterprise that may or may not even make money? I'll stick with no debt at the moment and continue on my merry little way. Thank you very much. Instead of digging myself into a deeper hole that we may never recover from. So I think it's really irresponsible, actually, to start telling people those sorts of things without comprehending the environment in which we live and work.
Yeah. And where do you think that needs to change? Where do you think that mindset needs to change? Is it in bridging the divide like we're trying to do, or is it in policy? Is it in people butting out of our business?
I think a lot of it does come back to policy positions, because you see it also like with people who are living with disabilities and those sorts of things. It's like, oh, well, just go and get a job. Okay, if you have some, like, and that's not saying people with disabilities can't work, but sometimes you can't, because you might need a car, but you can't afford a car because you've never haven't been able to work previously, and you can't catch public transport because you're it's not set up for you, and those sorts of things. But it's like, oh, well, everyone must contribute, everyone must have a job. And obviously we, as in farmers, when we're having bad seasons, I think we're perceived as like bludging or extracting money out of the taxpayer or something, and the amount of people that actually get farm household allowance and stuff's pretty bloody slim, because it is damned hard to get, and 9 times out of 10 the amount of paperwork and stuff you have to do to get it makes it not worth the hassle and the drama. But I think it's this mindset that like everyone has to be 100% working all the time, which I find quite hilarious, given the very small number of sitting days that Parliament actually has. So, like, if people are producing something and they are contributing, then leave their businesses alone, leave them alone. Like, making us more sustainable and resilient when you're talking about climate change or trade wars or anything like that does not involve us getting an extra job, if that's going to be more stress and strain than what we already do. Like, there are other ways to safeguard your business and those sorts of things, rather than just say, oh, go and get another job. Because where do these jobs come from? Like,
yeah, absolutely. And you still are applying against a lot of other people in the workforce at the moment who are trying to go for the same jobs, particularly if they're remote jobs or working from home jobs. And I do want to go back and also double click when you mentioned farm household allowance, because not everyone who needs to be on it has access to the farm records. If they don't have access to the farm records, or the farm's tax period, the way they work their business doesn't overlap with when the reporting needs to happen, you are not eligible, even if you are eligible, because your reporting period is not the same as the farm's. It has not been set up well for a lot of farming cycles and a lot of reporting either. And so a lot of people do forfeit payments or can't get it to start with because they don't have access to the documents. So I just wanted to double click on that because I've had other farm wives who I've interviewed on the Ultimate Farm Wife, say that when we've been off camera, like they don't qualify because of that reporting or because of lack of access to the documents they need to support their claim.
The way we support vulnerable people in Australia through Centrelink is appalling. And something very frightening that I've read is that they're now going to use AI to sort of like assess claims and see if you're rorting the system or whatever. And given the fact that they've had the robo debt and all those sorts of things, because even I was hit with a robo debt, it wasn't a significant one, but they're like, oh, we went back through our records for the past 12 years and we've overpaid you. But and then they said, oh, because we're going to do this, we're not going to make you repay it. I'm like, damned right, you're not going to after 12 years, because I don't hold my records for 12 years. So, but anyway, and I think like it's, yeah.
A lot of the time after that 12-year period, though, they're assessing you against the current terms and conditions, the current claims, the current policy. That wasn't the policy at the time. So how can you justify overpaying? How can you justify that I now owe you money? Because at the time it was correct. And so I don't believe that it should be done by AI. That is something that I think really does need to be done by somebody who is trained and authorized to do so.
Yeah, you cannot outsource things that affect people's lives, because after the robo debt thing, people did commit suicide because of the strain and pressure that they were put under. And that's not the whole system's meant to safeguard people. And I know when people say, oh, government, allowances and those sorts of things, they immediately go to like, oh, dole bludgers and all those sorts of things. There's family assistance payments. There's assistance for isolated children payments. It all comes out of the same bucket. And they'll say, oh, the cheating dole bludgers and this and that and everything else. We're all in that bucket as well, people. So it will apply to all of us equally before you start getting all really worried about dole bludgers.
Yeah.
It's anyone who's in receipt of a government payment can be hit with these sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. It covers a huge range of people and we need to be there protecting them. Or not even for the whole time. Like people aren't on them all the time. For a majority of people, they're not on them all the time. They come on at a time of need and they come off it when they're no longer eligible or when they no longer need the support. And that's the way the system needs to work. It doesn't always work like that. Did you have anything else you wanted to say on this topic?
No, I think this is one of those things that it's a watch and wait and see policy space to see how this evolves. I think like people who give advice to farm businesses and stuff really need to, I think, speak to a few more farmers about these sorts of things before they go making broad sweeping statements and making recommendations that, because what they're doing then is they're making people feel bad. Like, well, I can't go and get an off-farm job to help, make us more resilient or whatever. So they're putting that back on the individual instead of saying, hey, this whole framework we've got here, this policy system, this is shit. But they're putting it back on the individual because that's the easiest thing to manipulate.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we did jump into topic one with a bit of chit chat. So, Gillian, let's do a bit of chit chat. What have you been up to this week?
Well, this week we had it on the Twitter today. I had people had to try and guess where I am today, because I am not at home. I am not in Alice Springs. I am in Adelaide at the moment. So got a few meetings lined up for the rest of the week. So I was on the plane. That's why we're recording at night time, unlike we usually do first thing in the morning. So I am in Adelaide, sitting in a motel room at the moment. And we had a good week last week, didn't we, Katja? We did the masterclass with the National Farmers Federation and the Orana Exchange, which was a bit of fun.
It was a lot of fun and we got some absolutely fantastic feedback. So Gillian and I were talking about how to navigate being a woman in agriculture in leadership positions, and we ran through everything from actually starting to choose your voice, what you want to be a leadership in, and then how to get there and how to use different supports along the way, whether it's building a community, whether it's social media presence, like where do you feel comfortable, where do you want to turn up. And we also deep dove into how to actually take feedback on, like when you get those people in your comment sections or your trolls. Gillian and I have two very different ways that we handle trolls and commenters online. So we made sure we covered both of those angles so that people can choose what they feel comfortable with or how they want to be able to react to people like that.
Yeah, no, it was a great group of people, and I really enjoyed it. Actually, it reminded me of my good old days when I used to be in the classroom back when I was what do they call them? They call them student support officers. I was a teacher's aide back in the day, just to hang out with the naughty kids and help them do their work. But these ladies weren't naughty; they were great. It was a really great session.
They were fantastic, and I loved how interactive they were in the chat as we were going along through the webinar. They didn't have any qualms being able to ask any questions, and a lot of them really wanted to deep dive into a lot of the topics that we were discussing, and we had the time to do that because it was a really nice size group as well.
Yep. No, it's one of those things we probably could have talked all day, but we did have a time limit, unfortunately, so we had to pack up and leave sooner or later. But yeah, it was great fun.
It is very important to put a time limit on Gillian and I because absolutely we could talk all day. So what happened to the rest of the week, Gillian?
I just spent the rest of the week dagging around in Alice Springs, actually, because that's where we were with school for the week. And then I got in the car and drove home, and then got in the car on Monday and drove to Coober Pedy and caught a plane. But yeah, things at home have been pretty slack because of the hot weather, but that's not too bad. So yeah, it's been not too bad. So what have you been up to, Katja? What's your week like?
We have an interesting week. So change of season, lots of different particles and things in the air. So this is everyone's warning to go and update your asthma plans and update everything that is you need for your first aid kit, including puffers on farm and antihistamines. We had one kiddo who has food allergies. Well, all my kids have food allergies, but they got dosed. They came out in hives. They started to swell. So you need those antihistamines, and if they are super reactive, make sure you've got an in-date EpiPen on farm. We didn't need an EpiPen. We just needed the antihistamines and some cold compress and a cold shower. But also asthma has been horrific this week, so I have not slept much. Also a warning, not a warning, but a reminder to reach out when you need help. I actually text my sister one morning at 3 a.m. to say, I'm going to need you for 2 hours tomorrow. Can you please make that work? Because I was going on 72 hours with 4 hours of broken sleep. And ask for help when you need it. Update your first aid kit because that's the week that I have had. We are hoping that the rest of the week will be fine.
Fingers crossed. It's always scary when it's kids. I think it's a lot scarier when it's kids. But yeah. How are they feeling now? Are they feeling better?
Much better. Much better.
That's good.
Yeah. Got everyone into I just try and bulk book us all into the doctor now because they have very limited spots. So I always try to have a bulk date somewhere in the calendar, and then it shifts around if we don't need it. But was really glad we had a bulk session on Sunday, so we all went through and we all got checked and we all got updated and we got all the scripts we needed. So that was perfect to be able to replace all of that and then able to update the school records on that as well. So that was really good. Apart from that, what have we been doing? We're finishing up hay. We are weaning cattle. And it's looking pretty dry, but not as dry as where you guys are. So I can't complain.
Oh, we can't. We're not really in a position to complain either, actually, because even though we don't have a lot of surface water left, we do have bore water and we do still have good standing feed. There's a lot of people worse off than us. They're getting into really strict water restrictions down here in the southern parts of Adelaide, down towards the southeast. Yeah, there's nothing left on the ground for livestock to eat. Everyone's feeding hay. Well, not everyone, but there's a lot of people feeding hay and supplement feeding their sheep. People making tough decisions about what they're going to keep, what they're going to sell, and whether they're going to rejoin. Yeah, it's not looking great for a lot of people. So fingers crossed those cyclones off the coast of Queensland at the moment decide to come across and spread some rain around. That'd be really handy.
Yeah, leave them alone. A lot of those places have way too much water and they need a nice reprieve. So if they can
Brisbane doesn't
dump
need any
some
more
of it over
rain.
your way. No. No. So Gillian, that takes us to the mid of our episode. And this part of the episode is sponsored by Farm Table. So thank you, Farm Table. Farm Table now hosts our podcast page, our landing page. So I will add that in the show notes below for you all to check out. But welcome to Farm Table. Farm Table is a proud independent Australian agricultural knowledge platform, bringing together the most relevant and curated agricultural resources from around the globe. More than that, Farm Table supports industry collaboration, peer-to-peer networking, and functions to build the capacity of individuals and organisations across the entire Australian ag supply chain. With over 3,000 resources, the latest agricultural events, funding opportunities, grants, micro courses and workshops all in one location, Farm Table makes it easier to find the information you need. So Gillian, we had a question written in this week. It was directed towards yourself, and they wanted to know whether or not someone from the comms team in the Labor government did reach out to you, either privately or on socials.
Never. That would be extraordinary if they did. But, we live in hope that they actually, are prepared to front the people that have to live by the decisions that they make. I've been giving this a lot of thought about the people, whoever signed off on that advertising plan, because none of this is haphazard. This would have been a program, it would have been planned, and it would have been like, okay, and the media company would have said, okay, well, we'll put it on these channels at this time in these locations, and someone looked at that and went, that's an excellent idea. Whoever agreed to that, I don't think they should have a job anymore, because that is the wrong thing to do. And whether it's through gross incompetence that they decided all advertising in urban areas about the live sheep shutdown was a great idea, or whether it's something more sinister than that, either scenario, they shouldn't have their job. But no, nobody contacted me to discuss my concerns.
And the second part of their question was, Gillian and Karcher, are you both part of... Sorry, this was someone else's question. So another question came in, and it was, Gillian and Karcher, last week you spoke about land care. Are you both in a land care group, and what is it operating like?
We don't have land care where I live, possibly because it would be like one land care per station. We do have in South Australia, we've got what we call our NRM groups. So because I live in an area, I'm a member of an NRM group, and they sort of fulfill sort of the function of a land care group, but they've got a funny sort of governance structure and those sorts of things, but they are a bit probably better resource than your average land care group, because they're partly government funded and that sort of thing. And, they do all similar sorts of things, and they handle our dog baiting and all that sort of stuff as well. But yeah, you probably have more chance of being involved in land care than I do, Karcher.
So I've been lucky enough to be a part of 2 land care groups. So the first land care group I was part of with my parents back when in my Orange, New South Wales days. It was a very nice small land care group, and it was more like a dinner club, I guess. Like, we would get together either at someone's house. They would host. They usually had a rotation of who was hosting. And then the position holders would rotate as well. So the president, the secretary, and the treasurer would rotate each year or every second year. And the person who was usually in the secretary role was the person who was wanting to do a project, because secretary for a lot of these community groups is a lot of work, particularly if they are the ones applying for funding. So if you were wanting to apply for funding for a particular project, then you were voted into secretary. You would have your year, Or like if there was other funds running, if there was other grants running and other people wanted to be involved, they would write up their applications, they would give it to you, the committee would sign off on it. That's air quotes, guys, because it would run past them at the, the formal part of the dinner. So you'd sit down, you'd do your land care work, and then you'd sit down and have dinner and dessert, and then you'd all go home. So that operated really, really well because it wasn't someone else doing your work. If you wanted the grant, if you wanted the funding, if you had a project, you do the work. So that worked out really, really well. And it also meant that it didn't go stagnant because everyone moved around every 2 years. It might be every 12 months, might be every 6 months. They'd have a special general meeting if they needed to shift any positions around. But it didn't become stuck in its way because 2 years and you're out. And I think that was an agreed upon ruling that they put into their constitution just to keep things going. Then you don't get it stuck like the poor person who wrote in last week's episode. I'm not part of a land care group at the moment, but really would love to get stuck back into it when I get some more time.
We don't have any time for land care. That'd be ridiculous.
Maybe junior land care when the kids are a bit older.
Yeah. So it is really interesting to hear that that's how that land care committee worked, because it is, and this is what I've found with committees, as long as everyone is upfront and transparent and open and honest about what's going on and why, that leads to the least amount of problems. Like occasionally someone will come along and want to upset the apple cart because they don't like it or they got a bee in their bonnet or something. But provided everyone's on the same page, you generally have very few problems.
Yeah. I think that group is the exception. I think a lot of them operate very differently.
Before we jump in to topic 2 for today, I'd like to introduce you to our topic 2 sponsor, Jo Marie Designs. Jo Marie Designs has defined the early days of motherhood for the outdoorsy woman, bringing together everything women love about long sleeves, collars, pockets, and sun protection. They add a touch of style and made them breastfeeding friendly. These shirts have revolutionized the working mum's life by simplifying the issues of finding practical and comfortable clothing to wear while nurturing their little ones and getting back to doing what they love. There are no buttons, no zips, no clips, no layers after layers of material, and best of all, no unwanted skin exposure. Using just one hand to lift the shirt, you can latch your little one and relax. Jo Marie Designs breastfeeding work shirts provide complete discretion, allowing every mother to feed in comfort wherever she is. And I love these work shirts, Gillian. I have 2 of them and I practically live in them. I really wish that this product was around when I'd had my first child on farm. It would have made breastfeeding far easier and a lot more discreet on farm, particularly around my in-laws.
But let's jump into self-care.
Self-care can be an interesting thing when you are pressed for time. Like yourself, you've had 0 sleep in the past 3 days.
Can you tell those on the video podcast? Can you tell?
It is a hard one. So you're right into all the crafty, like making your own jams and that sort of stuff, Katja. Would you say that is one of your forms of self-care?
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of my non-negotiables when Ned and I were talking about building on the farm and something that I could have. So even if I wasn't podcasting and I wasn't doing the Ultimate Farm Wife, then I would have my orchard and I would have my garden. And I don't know what it is. It's feeling the grass under your feet. We eat dinners outside whenever we can as well. It's just being able to stop, feel the grass in your feet. That's why I water that patch of grass. It's even in drought, it didn't go. It was just my little I don't know, 3 metre by 3 metre patch that I watered. Same as under the clothesline, because at the end of the day, I didn't want to cry when I dropped, sheets or clothes on the dirt and had to go rewash them or something like that. So my little stretch of grass and my little bit under my clothesline stayed, and then I carted buckets of bore water to all my trees before we got all the piping and taps in. But it's definitely a form of self-care, because it's something that you can just 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. I've got a lot of fruit trees. I've got 4 raised garden beds now, because in-ground planting just was not working here. The ground is too hard, it gets too dry. So we did raised garden beds, and yeah, just 10 minutes here and there. It's amazing how much better you feel at the end of the day. And also because sometimes we don't get to town. We're not far from town, we're in about 20 minutes, but sometimes you don't get to town. And if you really need a tomato, or you really need a chili, or you really need something, then there's something in the garden we're going to be able to eat. Something in the freezer, something in the garden.
Isn't that amazing? Your idea of self-care just sounds to me like another form of torture.
Another job.
Another job. Watering these goddamn plants, god damn it.
And I do get asked, how do you fit that in? Like, not so much the gardening or the watering. Ned helps me with that at night when the kids go down. It's not unheard of for us both to be out there watering at like 10 o'clock at night just to wind down.
Around, yep.
And just, pottering around is exactly what we're doing. But the jamming and the processing, because I do produce quite a lot, I will probably send Gillian a list of my fruit trees so she can put that up at a tile and you can have a look at that. But I mean, I have young kids and they are up at stupid times, particularly when you're going on 72 hours with very little sleep. And so being able to use something, I mean, I don't do old school. I'm not standing next to the stove stirring. I don't have time for that. I did invest in a dehydrator. I did invest in a Thermomix, so that it just sort of does it itself, but it's still you're still going through the process without having to stand over a hot stove, and you've still got your own produce at the end that you're actually using as well. But self-care for me also is that 5-10 minute cup of tea where you just sit down and zone out without your phone for a bit. Or I'm a water person, big water person, love water. Really weird for where we live. We're not on a creek, we're not on a river. But Sundays for an hour. 1 hour on a Sunday, I am in the bath, and I don't want to hear mum, and I don't want someone to come to me to problem solve. That's what I'm doing. I've got my candles lit. I've got my, rainforest music going, and no one talks to me for an hour. And it's amazing how much that recharges you. So 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and a set hour time period. It doesn't matter what the world throws at me, usually within the week, especially if it's a week like we've had now, it's recharged, ready to go, and chocolate.
Yeah. I'm a big sweet tooth. Like, I will if I need something, I will quite quickly knock up a batch of chocolate fudge or some meringues or something, just because, just makes me feel better. And meringues are good because they take like an hour and a bit to cook. So, you have to then force yourself to wait before you eat them. Chocolate fudge, on the other hand, like, I cannot count the number of times I've burnt myself eating chocolate fudge too quickly. But I do enjoy a bath, like not in the summer months, because our water comes out of the tap like at the same temperature as blood, so it feels like it's just there.
Yeah.
But in the winter, when it's nice and cold, a nice hot steamy bath, that's the business. And I do lots of, I don't know what I'd just define as self-care, because it varies from moment to moment. I like to paint. I'm not very good at it. I'm currently working on a big, my version of Starry Night by Van Gogh. So currently working on that. I do paint by numbers a lot, because you just put the headphones in, like put the podcast on and paint by numbers. I've got that many paint by numbers paintings in my house. It's ridiculous. I've got the Mona Lisa. I've got a couple of other random ones. but
Maybe we
it's
should have
those
an auction night, Gillian. We should have an auction night and auction them
auction
off.
off some of my paint by numbers. I was giving them away for Christmas presents one year. Everyone was getting a paint by numbers for Christmas.
Well, actually, it's funny you mention that. I have a friend who does paintings as an outlet, and Christmas time she does not buy wrapping paper. Everyone gets their Christmas presents wrapped in her paintings.
Oh, awesome. That's really cool. It's like, because I don't perceive myself as being very crafty. Like, if you name it, I've had a go of it. I've tried crocheting, I've tried knitting, and usually I just get the shit straight up because it doesn't turn out the way I imagine it. I get bored with it, and so I'll do something else. So I've got a couple of games on my phone to play. One of them I just stack bricks. It's like Tetris sort of thing, but it has to fit into a certain shape. Another one, Eleanor really likes it because it's sort of like Candy Crush, but it's based on fish. And then so I make all this pretend money, and then she spends the pretend money on decorations for the fish tank. So she thinks that's amazing. But yeah, it's funny what self-care can look like for some people. Like, it's yeah, and I think you need to find what it works for you, and don't expect the same thing to work all the time.
Yeah.
Because there will be times when you are screaming out for rest, for mental rest and physical rest. So what looks like self-care might be having a nap.
Yeah.
It might, you think, oh, I'll just go and lay down and read a magazine or something. Your brain just sometimes needs to not be doing anything. Just close your eyes, just it's you need to really, I think, start to learn to listen to yourself and listen to your body and your brain and what it's trying to tell you. It's like sometimes I can't figure out what's wrong with me, but what I need to do is exercise, which is bizarre because I'm not a big exerciser. But I'll get so and restless. It's like I've got to go and do something.
What's
So
your
I'll go and
energy?
do
What's your vibes telling you?
yeah, and I think learning to listen to yourself is probably the biggest thing when it comes to self-care, and communicating to your partner, if you have one, that this isn't trivial. This is something I need to be a fully functioning human being. So you need to give me the time or the space or the capacity to be able to do this for myself. And I think that's often a hard time for especially our male partners to take on board. They've traditionally had outlets like their mates and sport and all those sorts of things. But when you go to a new area or you're at home with kids, you don't have access to the same sort of outlets as you might have had when you were younger. And especially when you've got babies, it's so hard to fit anything in when you've got a baby and they go to that clingy stage and they don't want to go to dad or grandma or anyone. It's just like mum or nothing. And it's just like, I can't do it anymore. And you need to find something and somehow to do something for yourself.
Yeah. I joined a book club when I was at that point, with would have been my first, I think, with Eddie. I joined a book club in town. We meet once a month. It doesn't matter if you haven't read the book. We pick a book as just a common discussion because we all really enjoy reading or we want to read more. And every month is a different genre. So even if I can't do, I used to love a really good murder mystery and a really good forensic book. Kathy Reach used to be one of my favorite authors, but now anything to do with pregnancy or kids, whether it's death or I don't know, possession or anything like that, I can't handle at the moment. So if they pick a book that's like that, great, they can read that. I'm going to read something else. So that's really great. If you don't have a book club or a library where you are, there's a really cool subscription book service at the moment. I'll put it in the show notes and I will send a link to Jillian. I think it's called Bookbox. It is incredible. It is definitely a self-care method as well because it's not just a book that comes to your door every month. It is curated. You fill out a survey, your likes, your dislikes. What do you like to do when you're reading? Where do you like to read? And they will choose a book in the genre that you pick, and then they will add self-care items to it. So if you want fluffy socks while you read, or you want snacks while you read, if you're someone who likes to highlight and doodle while you read or whatever it is that you're doing, they curate a box for you. It comes, you can either get it as a single buy or a subscription service, or you can buy it for someone else, which is really cool.
Ooh.
So I'm going to add that in the show notes and send it through to Gillian, because I love that idea. And particularly when we're talking about luxury items, about what you can buy for other people who, need that little special treatment, that's going to be an incredible gift to give as well.
Yeah, that's it. Because, like, honestly, what do you buy someone who's of like our age? We've got everything we need, but you still want to do something nice for them. And I know you said you like candles, Katja. I cannot abide fucking candles.
Not smelly
Like,
candles, not smelly
yeah,
candles, just a
yeah,
plain wax candle.
yeah, I can't abide the different smells and that sort of stuff. I know some people are really into it. Not for me. If I get a scented candle, it disappears.
It melts because it's so hot out here.
Goes away. No, what I usually do is I leave it in the packaging and put it in the drawers, like like Grandma used to do with put the soap in there. That's what I do with the candles. I just leave it in the box and it goes into one of the drawers. But yeah, that's a really good way to show someone that you're thinking of them, and that, and because, like, I'm at the age where I don't want my house filled up with more crap. Like, something that you can use, and a book, you can lend it to a friend, or you can, swap it out at a book exchange or something. Like, you don't have to hang on to it forever. Like, you can if you want to, but you don't have to, and it's small. Yeah, that's a really, really good idea, actually.
Yeah. I have a little shed that Ned made me that I've put down off the road, and any book that I've finished. Sometimes I finish a book or I finish a series and I go, yeah, I'll keep that. It'll sit on the bookshelf and I might read that again. But other ones, I'm like, it was okay. Or if I didn't finish it or I couldn't get into it, it goes down there as a book exchange item. So if they drive past, people can either, if you pick up a book, you got to drop a book off, or it's $2 to the donation jar.
Awesome.
Yeah. Lots of self-care ideas there, lots of different ways to go about it. Gillian, did you get any questions that people wanted specifically answered, or any tips and tricks that people wanted to add to today's discussion on the socials?
No, I didn't actually, which is not surprising because it's a pretty busy time of the year actually for a lot of people. And I think faffing about on social media, even though it's something that I quite enjoy, it's not something that's for everyone.
Yes.
So that's all right. We'll forgive you. We'll forgive you. As long as you rate and review the podcast on a podcasting platform, I will forgive you for not talking to me on social media.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. It makes a big difference. It means that the algorithm picks up on the show, picks up that you like it, picks up that we're real people talking about real life things. So even if you don't want to add some comments, please add some stars. 5 would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'd be really disappointed if you gave me less than 5. So, yeah, 5-star reviews only. Thank you.
And if you do want to be considered an Ag Fab of the Week, then we'd love for you to leave a review.
We would love that, because I am finalising the merch designs to send them away to the printer/embroiderer this week, hopefully.
Did anyone see them on the socials this week?
Yeah, the Ag Watcher guys, like they were episode 3 boys. They were like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that looks better than ours," and I'm like, "Well, of course, obviously,
I did
I'm so
it.
talented."
And by I mean I was mocking Gillian. And Gillian would say, "Well, of course, because I did it."
Oh, anything else, Katja? How's the conference going? We've got cheese organised. We've got elephants, monkeys, babysitting, excellent MC. What else have we got?
I don't think we've previously talked about these guys who are coming to the conference. So I have also locked in the Royal Flying Doctor Service Mental Health Program. So they will be coming and doing a session as well. So many people may know the Royal Flying Doctor as a 24/7 hour service for emergencies for rural and remote locations, but they also have other programs such as their new mental health initiative. So really excited to have them on board and to be able to highlight their program and what else it is that they do, and really set up attendees on, how to contact them, what to contact, like how to contact them, what they need on farm and station, particularly if they need to bring the plane in. How are we going to get to your location? Like, where are we going to land? What are your safety measures? Have you got half-cut 44-gallon drums that you're going to put candles in? Are you going to use glow sticks? Are you going to light, use diesel and light some fires? Like, what are you going to do to be able to get that landing strip, particularly if it's at night or if you're in the middle of nowhere? What do they need to know about or look out for, power line wise, tree line wise? How are they going to know it's your property? Because a lot of farms around here no longer have their name on the, the tin roof for the wool shed or the machinery shed. So how are they going to know where you are? What's your GPS location? That kind of thing. So really excited for that program and initiative to come in. And they have also donated one of their safety swags to the auction.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
they are really good, actually, those safety swags. I might have to bid on that one. I think I'll be in super big strife when I go home with the checkbook all run out. But no, they're really good. If you coming to the conference, definitely place a bid on that, because I can highly recommend that piece of equipment for on a station or farm. They're excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's alongside the Southern Cross Small Arms Type NX, who they actually sponsored one of our episodes or a couple of our episodes very early on. So fantastic to have them on board. So one of their firearms will go up for auction as well. And this week I had one of the box of books turn up for the gift bags, which is by Jack Owen, who is a farmer who has written a self-help book for farmers, and it's all about what the top 5% of farmers are doing that you may not be. It is fantastic. It's got so many examples in it, like practical, relatable examples that will really help. It's based on people, which is what the conference is all around, building the resilience of people, giving them the skills and the resources that they need to be resilient within their business so their business can be resilient. So really excited that has arrived this week as well.
Awesome. It's going to be great. I'm so looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to the drive, but the actual conference is going to be pretty good. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today, because I get to do the outro as well, because Katja hasn't had any sleep for 3 days because of reasons. But thanks very much for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.